Will it take a good man and they change him to a villain when the system's been set?
What's up, people? Welcome back to the BCMA podcast. That's the Black Clover Martial Arts podcast. It's your boy Lucky from Lucky's Muay Thai. This is episode number 91. In this episode, I was right. Maybe. We'll talk about it. We'll run some tape and we'll see. There's a lot of boxing. Gervonta Davis fought. Christiana Cyborg fought. Anderson Silva fought with Chael Sonnen. Put them on the same little plane because they're definitely forever connected. UFC Vegas happened, but I wasn't into it. And is IZZY back at 305 in Perth? We'll talk about it. But first, congratulations to the Boston Celtics for their 18th title. I'm a basketball kid. My dad played pro ball, so it's something that's in my blood. I watched a lot of this year, and I enjoyed the games, the series. Everything was good, and it was fun to watch. So congratulations to the Celtics. They put in the work over the Mavericks, so that's that. They gave them the beats. If you like the show, keep the like, hit the subscribe, pass it to a friend that might be into MMA, jiu-jitsu, boxing, martial arts in general. We talk about all that, man. Let them know. It's a good podcast. If you want to stop by the gym, www.luckysmt.com. Fantastic Muay Thai program. We have an amazing jiu-jitsu program. We have a kids program that's just getting going. I'm really happy with how far we've grown, and we're going to get bigger. We are going to find a bigger place and fill it out with more beautiful, amazing people. www.luckysmt.com if you want to get started getting healthy, learning some Muay Thai, learning some Jiu-Jitsu, just learning some self-defense, finding a great community to be around. We're here for you. Hit me up directly at Lucky's Muay Thai on Instagram. Hit Roberto Carrero up directly at CarreroBJJ on Instagram. And come join us and have a great time, meet some great people, and get in shape, yo. And some self-defense never hurt. Okay. I was right. I mean, you might as well start calling me Luxtradamus, right? Like, I predict a lot of these things. So, I don't know, man. I should maybe get a little credit here. And I didn't base it off of one particular person. Like, I saw some things and stuck some things together and went, oh, this is what they're going to do because they don't have any other choice. But anyway, run the tape. I don't know what's going to happen, but, the word on the street is that it's maybe a no-go. But there's also word on the street that Pereira versus Jiri has been signed. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but who knows? All right. That was in response to the rumors about Conor and Chandler not fighting. Michael Chandler's been waiting for this fight for 2 years or something. I don't know. Conor's been playing like he was going to fight. And as you heard in the clip, I definitely thought it was going to be, possibly Jiri and Alex because they had shown that they had signed these contracts, or at least, Jiri had signed his, and who else are they going to put in that spot? It's like it's the perfect thing. I don't know if it's going to be good for everybody that paid all that money for those $1,000 tickets and flights and hotels and whatever to be a part of this historic Conor McGregor comeback. But still a great fight. So, I mean, was I right? At this moment, the UFC has not really announced it, but we've seen some video. You know what's going to happen. I think Diego Lopez and Brian Ortega on that card now as well. Because Khamzat was sick again. I don't know what this thing is with his illness. Nobody really knows, but Khamzat Chimaev has been sick a few times over, since COVID, and there was talk about him retiring at one point, and then whatever. That's a lot of drama I don't want to even discuss or speak on. But food poisoning, was he really sick? How sick was he? Does he have an ongoing illness? What the hell is going on with Khamzat, man? Seems a little crazy to me, but he was out So Robert Whittaker had to end up taking another fight on, short notice. He said he didn't even know who the guy was. And right now I didn't even write it down. So I don't even know. But I will say that I honestly think this card is going to be okay because Alex Pereira saved 300. Alex Pereira is the current savior of, these fight cards, which you couldn't have a better one. So there you go. Was I right? We'll find out soon, but I was pretty much right. You can go ahead and give me credit now. Luxtradamus strikes again. All right. Gervonta Davis KO'd Frank Martin. Computer's about to run out of juice, baby. Back to it. Gervonta Davis KO'd Frank Martin in the 8th. The thing about it, I've said this repeatedly, is that if somebody's a power puncher, a knockout artist, Gervonta Davis is definitely a knockout artist. I'm not saying he's not skilled in his boxing because he is quite skilled. And you're going to try to beat him with volume and movement, which Frank Davis had great movement and he was putting up some great, I wouldn't say numbers in volume, but he never would throw like really 1 or 2. He's really throwing 3, 4, 5, whatever, and trying to move around. His footwork is amazing. He's got some of the best footwork I've seen in a while. It's like he was on ice skates, and sometimes he was so smooth the way he was stepping around. But that's the problem. If you're counting on your footwork basically entirely to beat Gervonta Davis, because listen, Gervonta Davis had some pink around his eyes, on his cheeks, but it was no worse for the wear. It was just, he also guards in this sort of peekaboo at times. And I don't know if you know this, but when you're taking punches on your gloves and your gloves are hitting your face, your face is gonna bruise. And we get you can feel it around your head when you do some sparring around the gym. It doesn't even have to be heavy sparring, but you do a few rounds and you've been blocking with your hands and sort of a peekaboo or catching, you're gonna have some soreness on your face and in your skin. So he had a little bit out on his cheeks, but it's nothing. The thing about it is, I always say this, you're not going to be able to do what you want to do if you can't get the respect of the person that's trying to walk you down. The power puncher, especially a guy like him that has some decent defense and can take a shot, they're not going to stop coming forward unless you make them respect your own power. And I think that's where Frank Martin maybe didn't sort of understand the dynamic, right? He did all the footwork stuff. He was pivoting out of the corner and sliding by, stepping on all this wonderful footwork stuff. It was great. And he was throwing in combination and flurries, and he was using his jab. He did a lot of the right things he was supposed to do, but he was getting stuck on the ropes a lot, which is where the fight was finished. And he also wasn't able to uncork enough power in places where it would make Gervonta Davis sort of second guess just sort of chasing him around, which a lot of times he was just chasing him because it maybe even looked crazier because Frank Martin's footwork is so good that maybe Gervonta Davis was just more trying to cut him off and so forth. But because the footwork's so good, there was times he was going from one corner to the other corner kind of thing. Anyway, Gervonta Davis has great power, great setups. He's very patient. And if you can't crack that dude, crack him and make him go, hold up a second, you are going to have a rough night because he's not going to stop coming. And he knows eventually you're going to stop. So what I hope is that we see Shakur Stevenson versus Gervonta Davis, because otherwise, what else is there really? We shall see. UFC Vegas happened, and I didn't really watch it. I'm not sure how it went, but it wasn't big enough for me to get into, I think. I didn't hear any names that made me go, oh, I gotta go and watch that fight or those fights. So that's why I didn't watch it. All right, Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen. It was a work, as Chael might say. If you don't know what a work is a predetermined ending to a fight. And it's it doesn't have to be taking a dive, but there's a predetermined ending. And so the fight must go as follows. It's not necessarily even scripted. It's just, this is what we're doing. This is how it's going to go, and this is how it's going to end. But it wasn't a work. It was an actual exhibition. I think people were the first time I saw some videos, people were like, "Oh, look, they're pity patting. They were making fun of them." But the real deal is they weren't supposed to knock each other out. They weren't supposed to hurt each other. And Anderson Silva was right when he said that they went out there and put on an entertaining show. What I saw when I watched the clips was guys throwing punches, receiving punches, moving all around, sort of slipping and throwing, some wild stuff, some slick things, playing around and putting on a show for the fans. And I really appreciate that is something that they could do together to sort of cement and finalize whatever that connection is, where they went through, some of the biggest turmoil and then a couple of the biggest fights in MMA history, UFC history for sure. And Anderson prevailed. But Chael was obviously one of the most worthy opponents. So super, super dope that they got to do that. And Anderson says he has a real fight coming up in Abu Dhabi or somewhere in the future. That's not an exhibition. And I'm sure that will more than likely be his retirement fight. But I don't see any problem with this. I'm glad it was an exhibition. I think people over here got the word that it was going to be a real thing. And so people were a little bit expecting more. I thought it was going to be sort of a retirement fight in boxing as well, but it wasn't. It was meant to be an exhibition. It was meant to be exciting. It was meant to be a way for both of these guys to make a little dough, do something for the fans in Brazil, and everybody have a great time. And I think they succeeded in that. Nothing wrong with that, man. Christiana Cyborg goes 4-0 in boxing with another KO. And to be honest, I don't know when anybody should retire. And I don't think she wants to. But I think what she wants is a couple of big name fights before she goes out. And I don't blame her. I don't blame her. She's trying to bait Clarissa Shields into taking a boxing match with her. But that's tough. That's a tough one, man. It could happen. Boxing, MMA crossovers have been happening. Clarissa's been doing some MMA. They even sparred before. So, it's something that could happen, and I hope it does for the sake of women's combat sports. For Cyborg to get a little dough in her pocket, a little more dough in her pocket before she retires. For Clarissa Shields to further cement her legacy. Not saying I know how the fight's going to go, but these kind of fights, these kind of events cement things into people's legacies that they can't take away. So it'll be all these championships, it'll be gold medals, it'll be this and that, and it'll this super fight at this event and this venue. So it's something that I hope happens for both of them and for the sake of women's combat sports, because they need as much push as they can get going up against the men who have most of the support and most of the leverage in the industry. So hope Cyborg gets that fight. Whew. And last but not least, is Israsel Adesanya back? Is it August 18th in Perth? Is he fighting DuPlessis for the belt? Well, this all started with some picture of Dana where he's doing the replacement fights for Conor and Chandler, and somebody noticed in the background Israel's name, or the last name, anyway, parts of it. You can look at the picture yourself. It's online. Adesanya's name is on the board. And they're like, oh, snap. So basically, whether he meant to do it on the sly way or it was accidental, it definitely leaked. Izzy was already talking about he's back training and this and that. So we knew that was happening. Drickus, I don't know if it's his personality. I don't know if he really doesn't know. He was on an interview and he's like, basically, I don't know what's going on with anyone. I don't know what I'm waiting. I don't know what's happening. And it feels like maybe there's a disconnect between him and the UFC for whatever reason. Like, I told him I'd be ready then, at this time, and I was ready and whatever. It feels like there's definitely a disconnect between him and the UFC and how he wants his business done and how they do business. And I don't know that they support Izzy anymore, but they did have sign that big contract with him a while back. And I think he's only had maybe 3 or 4 fights from that contract, which means he has like 6 more to go, and you got to make that dough off that man, and he's got to make his dough. So whether Dricus knew it was coming and just played it off or didn't know, Izzy knew, and there's no way Dricus could not have known unless they just don't like him, which I don't know, man. But that's looking like it's going to be August 18th, another thing that has not been announced, right? So this hasn't been announced. Jiri and Pereira was announced. And man, if there's a fight that I'm looking forward to while we're talking about all this, it's Israsel Adesanya versus Dricus DuPlessis. Because I get Dricus. I think he doesn't understand himself. Sometimes doesn't understand the words that are coming out of his mouth and how they can affect his image. So I get what he was saying, sort of. I get what he was trying to say, and it still didn't make any sense. Once you say something like, I'm the real African, being a white South African, I believe of Dutch descent, I could be wrong. It's a very touchy subject in general, but this sport is violent. And I don't know that I'm not saying Izzy's going to beat him, but the last thing you want to do with somebody else violent is basically tell them that they're not historically connected to the continent that they came from and that has history molded around people being taken from the continent and still trying to connect with the continent. There are African Americans, obviously, Black people in America that tried to connect with Africa because that is still the continent that a lot of people were brought to this country from. And Israel left, obviously, voluntarily and all this, but like, you can't tell that man that he is not African and that you are the real African and all these other crazy sort of South African Dutch white guy ideas. This is a wild thing to say to somebody. So you say that kind of thing, and on the street, I guess you expect some sort of there might be violence. But in this case, there's definitely going to be violence. So maybe that's something he really wanted to do. Maybe it's something like, again, when he's talked about not knowing what was going on with the fights and this, that, and the other, I thought to myself, well, shit, man, maybe you just don't really know things the way you think you do. You would. He doesn't express himself sometimes in the ways that I'm like, he might be a meathead. For what it's worth. Anyway, I hope that fight happens. Izzy versus DuPlessis, August 18th. Fingers crossed. And I guess, Pereira, the savior of the UFC for the last year. And Jiri is a freaking warrior. And I can't wait to see this one again. So, yeah, man, that's this episode 91. I love y'all. If you want to stop by the gym, www.luckysmt.com. If you want to hit me up directly at Lucky's Muay Thai. And take care of each other out there. Peace, blessings, respect. All of those things are created within you, and you have to pass them on to other people. Don't expect them. You give them, and it comes back. So I love y'all. Get out there and respect each other. Do some good shit. And I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace. I'm out.
By racists trying to kill him. I just want to live my life to make a couple million.